The silence is golden. QX post number 137. Sunday, April 26th, 2026. There comes a moment in every operation, every controlled narrative, every coordinated media cycle, every engineered distraction when the noise suddenly drops. The talking heads slow. The headlines lose their edge. The outrage machine, once roaring at full volume, begins to stall. And for those paying attention, that moment is not random. It is not accidental. It is calculated. Because in the world of power, silence is not the absence of activity, it is the presence of control. Silence is what follows exposure. It is what remains when the narrative architects realize that pushing further would risk revealing too much. When information begins to surface that cannot be easily twisted, reframed, or buried under distraction, the strategy shifts. Not forward, not louder, but quieter. Because silence buys time. Silence allows repositioning. Silence gives those behind the curtain the space to recalibrate their next move without drawing attention to the cracks that have already formed. Watch closely how silence behaves. It does not come with an explanation. It does not announce itself. It simply replaces what was once constant noise. Stories that dominated every screen vanish overnight. Figures who were relentlessly attacked or elevated disappear from the cycle. Questions that demanded immediate answers are no longer asked. And the public, conditioned to chase the next headline, often moves on without ever realizing that something unresolved was left behind. That is the function of strategic silence. It relies on short attention spans and controlled focus. But silence also signals something else: pressure. When systems operate without resistance, they remain loud, confident, and relentless. It is only when pressure builds, when opposing forces begin to expose weaknesses, when internal fractures start to widen, that silence becomes necessary. It is the equivalent of stepping off the stage to avoid a spotlight that is no longer favorable. It is the pause before a shift in tactics. And in many cases, it is the clearest indicator that something significant is happening behind the scenes. For those who understand this pattern, silence is not reassuring, it is revealing. It forces a different kind of awareness, one that does not rely on what is being said, but on what is no longer being said. Because absence can speak just as loudly as presence. The stories that vanish, the voices that go quiet, the sudden lack of coordinated messaging, these are not voids. They are signals. They point to areas where control is being challenged, where narratives are being reconsidered, and where outcomes are not yet secure. This is why silence unsettles those who depend on constant messaging. Without noise, there is no easy way to steer perception. Without repetition, there is no reinforcement of belief. Silence creates space, and space allows independent thought. It allows people to revisit what they have seen, to question what they have been told, and to recognize inconsistencies that were previously buried under a flood of information. In that sense, silence is not just a tactic, it is a risk. And yet, it is also a necessity. Because when the alternative is exposure, silence becomes the safer option. It is the temporary shield used when the system needs to regroup, but it is never permanent. Silence is always followed by something, either a re-emergence with a new narrative, a redirection toward a different target, or a controlled release of information designed to reshape the story before it fully unravels. So when the noise stops, do not assume nothing is happening. Assume the opposite. Assume that decisions are being made, strategies are being rewritten, and outcomes are being negotiated out of public view. Because in the arenas where influence, power, and perception intersect, silence is never empty. Silence is golden, not because it is peaceful, but because it is valuable. It is used deliberately, deployed strategically, and understood only by those who recognize that what is hidden often matters more than what is shown. QX. For all QX articles, visit AmericanPatriotSocial.com/QX/articles/. Enjoy.